Today is 5th of July and it is Wednesday. And it was only a few days ago that we had the CPTM hubs, Smart Partners Hubs Library, together with the Smart Partnership Movement, observing a moment of silence for His Excellency President Masire, our founder of Smart Partnership Dialogue in Southern Africa, alongside his colleagues in Southern Africa, in East Africa, in the Commonwealth, alongside taking forward the Lankawi dialogue. Now, Lekoma is very seldom here, but otherwise is almost every moment here. And welcome Lekoma physically here. You were supposed to be with us last Thursday,
Yes.
last week. But we're very grateful that you were there to represent us.
Yes.
And you were there last Thursday when in Kanye, in the last moments, Secretary Keumile Masire has been so much prayed, and his life was celebrated by CPTM fellows, by former heads of government, and by the entire nation alongside ourselves. Now the central bank governors were here, were mainly from Southern Africa, including East Africa, Uganda. And they were obviously together with the Deputy Prime Minister, former Deputy Prime Minister of Namibia, who is a CPTM companion and very well known former freedom fighter and part of liberation movement in Southern Africa, and very much feels that Smart Partnership Movement is the movement that both in Namibia and in the Commonwealth is one that will bring in the continue to bring in the dignity of the individuals. So now we weren't very sure, Lekoma, as we discussed a bit before, how should we and why should we have just a kind of on the record our own personal, but when we say personal, is part of the Smart Partnership Movement. Personal moments put on record around Secretary Keumile Masire. But one thing for sure, now having passed 1 week since His Excellency is not with us, we realize that the meaning of Masire is associated with Smart Partnership Movement, and the meaning of Smart Partnership Movement is associated with dignity, with all these very special characteristics that Secretary Keumile Masire had. Very special, special to himself, special to Botswana. So, literally last week, when we joined the anthem of Botswana, I don't think any of those who were in the library, of those who kind of had the Botswana anthem and the Kasane anthem for the Smart Partnership Movement, could not be emotionally kind of connected with one another. And it became quite, because of Secretary Keumile, it became quite natural for us to say Dumelangma. I mean, anybody, wherever, Dumelangma, Dumelangan. Yeah? It became quite natural for the drum to be with us. Doesn't matter what we do. So last week we had some of these giants in the digital industry who, being part and parcel of the beginning of observing the one moment of silence, they immediately felt that connection with Keumile, and it wasn't simply an African eccentricity or tribalism and so on, but it was in fact so elevated beyond what they do. They are missing community of that nature, and what they are promoting, the individuals in digital landscape, from Google to anybody else, they are promoting trust, technologies which promote trust. What they cannot do is to build trust among people for which these technologies which bring trust. So obviously there is it resonated, the observance of Keumile Masire's moment of silence and what followed after that during the day, together with a most highest level professional think tanking that could take place in relation to the central bank governors' opportunities and threats that they are facing based on the digitalization of data. So one could say that it was a tribute to Keumile Masire, the think tanking that the governors had, one of the best that they ever had, and it is also because there was this spirit of smart partnership, which otherwise is very difficult to bring into central banks, and particularly into the context of people who are competing in the digital context nowadays. And they are used with very ruthless kind of disruptions and so on. So I think there is Keumile Masire's passing away at this point of time is a turning point. And when we talk about leverage, that's my view, leveraging value of knowledge, actually leveraging the value of smart partnership. That's the only way the knowledge and the data and everything else has a value. And it just made us to reflect and to remind us that all these things that we were also reviewing today that suddenly have been evolving because of Keumile Masire's remembrance last week. It inspired us, yeah. So I wasn't very sure if, for instance, the idea of securing the state and national visioning, yeah. When we were discussing the other day, following the issue of security and securing the state within the think tanking raised by Sir David Omand, I wasn't very sure that that is connected, or how it's connected with actually the beginning of smart partnership in Botswana in this around the Vision 2016. But as usual, we're discussing about, is it relevant? What is the meaning of, as we always discuss with Keumile, and he was listening. Yeah, you were able to kind of, based on your direct participation for so many years around Keumile Masire, you are able to put some meaning to it. Yeah. So, do you want to say a few things about?
Well, the only thing that I can say is that while Keumile was a natural visionary. He had great ideas for his country, for Botswana, and for the region in general. And was a selfless leader. He led by example, and he had passion for development and for the kind of inclusive nature of development, where he wanted to bring everybody together. He was a person who consulted a lot, who shared his views, and wanted consensus on issues. So when he first went to Langkawi in
96.
1996, and this whole subject of smart partnership was discussed there.
And the approach
of dialoguing, and
not having a stage and all the rest.
Yes, and sharing views and moving everybody, forward. It immediately
signaled,
he felt that this is really what he's been trying to do, and that this was the right thing for him to bring back to. And it just so happened that Prime Minister Mahathir wanted to share their own experience in Malaysia with other countries. And he jumped up, and he was the first to say, I'm willing to host the first
in Southern Africa.
Yeah, in Southern Africa, in Botswana, Southern Africa. And
I thought he said in Botswana because he was SADC.
Yes, well, Botswana for this, he was thinking about Botswana, but also about Southern Africa.
This is what,
as you remember, at that time, we had just come out of the liberation wars in Zimbabwe and South Africa, and the focus now was no more on liberation but on national development. And the experience of working together, during the struggle with various parties, in Botswana and South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and so forth, during this, they had what they call the frontline state, where they coordinated development and not development, but the struggle, And there was now a time when they were moving into now the second phase of that cooperation now to development. And this smart partnership, resonated with that kind of, thinking that was already there on the ground in Southern Africa. And that was part of his own personal, approach to things. So he embraced that with enthusiasm, and after launching that first international dialogue in Botswana, he continued to be part of this movement, to support this movement, to became really
it was part of his life.
A part of his life, and a symbol
of his leadership,
unity, and of bringing people together because of his own natural talents of consulting and bringing people together. He really became like the embodiment of this movement. And up to the time when he passed away, and after his retirement, he continued to be a symbol of smart partnership, and that is why this movement, the smart partnership movement, was so much felt, sense of loss when he, because it was like he was like the father of the movement in Southern Africa, in Africa in general, outside Malaysia. And so we are here now really trying to continue, because this is the only way to development that is viable, of bringing people together, of win-win, of prosper thy neighbor, prosper thy people, that can lead countries to true development. And so we are now in the process of planning think tanking to really develop, or how do I put it, to map the way forward. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this,
as we said, to pushing the limits
yeah,
of inclusive growth through this
yes,
partnership,
yeah,
and
yeah. So this is really what we're here for. We are moving beyond what, or building on the foundation that was, created by people like Keumile Masire.
Let's see if I may just go back a little bit, Lekoma, because we're trying to put on record evidence of what everybody's saying. I mean, the messages from smart partners and those that haven't been said but have been felt are very much grounded on a lot of instances which explain why those words have been, messages have been sent. So when you said about Keumile was His Excellency first in Langkawi 1996, after the first Langkawi 95, was the first among his colleagues to say, let's bring smart partnership in Southern Africa, because he was preoccupied about SADC and so on. But I remember they were not called fellows themselves. After that they started to be called fellows, because it was the first time in Kasane always when they said, what are we?
Yes.
Those few of us, and we invite the others. And they will continue the discussion of what is a fellow. We are a fellow of the movement. But he was saying, well, it is with President Uyoma, it is with Malawi, it is with Zimbabwe, and it is with Namibia. In Namibia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Botswana, the four of them. If you remember, there are four. But then there are four together with everybody else. Together with Mozambique, together with South Africa, together with Mauritius, together with Seychelles. But then he said, what about West Africa? Ghana will be from West Africa. What about East Africa? Uganda from East Africa. And then he went all around to say, of course, Malaysia for Southeast Asia, and then Barbados from. So it was almost kind of making sure that there is that inclusivity from the beginning. So that's selfless and kind of not excluding. And then when he was preparing, we were preparing the briefings for all their excellencies who haven't been to Smart Partnership. They didn't know what on earth is all this. He called them, you remember, from his office. We were there when he called each and every of them and said, can you say, and Lekoma and Mihala joint conveners, they will come and they will brief you, Excellency, and tell them what you want to be on the agenda. So he asked everybody what they want. Do you remember we went to Zimbabwe? And what a discussion we had about. But we went to the famous one. We went everywhere, but the famous one with Cyril Ramaphosa and with Gaolate. We went to President Mandela on a Sunday morning to that small house. Now, there is when he said, I won't come because the brothers naturally will speak too long. And because this is a conference and whatever. Although the discussion was incredible. Again, like Keumile Masire, he remembered President Mandela he asked you about your father. He asked Gaolate about where he is, and so on and so on. We went back home and we said, well, His Excellency may not come. Well, the drums came about. Because if we put drums, then people may speak less. And people may come at the right time. And President Mandela did come. And there was this natural, very formal, but most natural kind of development of a smart partnership, dialogue and interaction, which was built on tradition. And His Majesty came, Swaziland. He was very young then, just taking over. Lesotho came. And of course, there's a representative of Secretary General came. SADC as a formal came.
In West Africa, President Rawlings came.
President Rawlings came, and he wanted on the spot, more or less, something different in his office. President Museveni came.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
President Chisano came.
Yes.
And so on. All the leaders that after that, they took turns. Of course, President Roma said, next is mine.
Yes.
So we went to Swakopmund.
So this is how really it all started, with a lot of enthusiasm, but
a very natural,
the
very
approach
focused,
and the trust that was built on after the immediate the liberation of Southern Africa, where they had worked together. Of course, what President Mandela was worried about was this was just going to be a talk shop. Talk shop, yes. But, and then he was assured that, as you rightly say, that this is not a talk shop. Really, it is...
But how can you give example to him what is not a talk shop when there wasn't anything of this kind yet that he experienced?
But I think it was the approach that was made to assure these people that really this is serious matter. It's about development.
It's like a new beginning.
It is now really carrying this region forward in a way that it resonates with us naturally, but also an approach that has been tested. In Malaysia and so forth, where there had been, tensions, racial tensions and so forth. And the evidence of really what happened there, in terms of development and bringing people together. So it was a matter of presenting this to people who were hearing about it for the first time. And as Mihaela was saying, President Masire took the trouble to send us as emissaries with letters to explain,
to Cyril Ramaphosa,
even to private sector people. We went to Anton Rupert.
Famous Anton Rupert, who launched his Peace Park.
From Cape Town and so forth. So it was there was a lot of a genuine push at the beginning that created this whole movement and they sustained it because other heads of states like President Nujoma, President
they picked up.
They picked up all of them.
So then it was a natural evolution. The flag became a flag, Smart Partnership Movement flag. A manifesto came about as a movement. Of course, the fact that they created, and President Masire Keumile was part of the Commonwealth Heads of Government in '95. They created this CPTM.
Exactly.
And it was the CPTM based on, again, very concrete evidence. What Malaysia did with this CPTM type. And but one of the things that he was always fascinated about was vision. And what is incredible was that he was an instinctual. When he talked in a way that it was inspiring hope and vision. So obviously one of the main attractions from Langkawi, I remember, was, I just see now, but there was at the end of a special sessions where Dr. Mahathir was explaining about the vision. And at the end of it, he went to Dr. Mahathir and said, it's time in my country to also do a vision or something like this. And Dr. Mahathir said, okay, no problem, we'll help. Now, when Sir Keumile went back home from the plane, whatever they talked, when I went, I was staying in a small hotel we stayed in Kuala Lumpur, in Pan Pacific. So I was just coming from Langkawi, go up to the room and see a message. I almost collapsed. President Masire called. How could a president call this number? Can I call a president? I mean, you don't know this, Lekoma, because these were things which you probably working with His Excellency in his office. But for us, or for Tan Sri Omar and so on, call the president. Okay, we called that number. And president came on the phone. So both Tan Sri Omar and myself, and at that time Nordin Sopi from ISIS, we've got instructions from Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir that whatever His Excellency President Masire would like to sound on how the vision in Malaysia came about, we should be available. And in about 2 weeks' time or something like this, we came to Botswana, Nordin Sopi, myself, with yourself. Now, it wasn't the question of making a vision or writing a vision. It was a question of listening to Sir Keumile, to the kind of things he wanted to put into a vision, and into a speech to launch a vision process. Actually, it wasn't the vision itself. It was different from Malaysia. It was to launch a vision process. And Lekoma, the interactions between you and me after we returned back, and by the time 30th of September came, were just incredible. The richest type of meaning, the kind of things that Botswana wanted to take off for the next so many years were put in that speech. Not only words, but tradition and everything was just incredible.
What is important about this process is that, as you rightly say, you didn't come there to write a vision or to be.
There's nothing
really
like
what you did was to talk to the president, and he brought in a few people around him from government and the private sector, and the kind of questions that you ask them to take out of them what they
think
and
about
the
this new
values
process. Yeah.
of the Botswana society, because really in every nation there is a vision, and the people may
Yeah.
not know that there's a vision.
Is to elicit.
It is to listen and to point to them that this is a strong, characteristic that you have, that you must exploit to move forward as a country. So it was that kind of assistance to.
Well, it was a sounding board there.
Yes,
It
to
was
help people to focus on
to
things.
stimulate.
To
It's
stimulate, you say,
not to
yeah.
say what it is.
Yes, but to.
And it was typical as
Yeah,
in a dialogue and a think
exactly,
tanking.
yes.
You stimulate.
Yes. And out of that, the people themselves
Then
were
they
able
started
to
performing.
articulate
Yes.
a vision based on really what was already in them, but they never really quite were able to put it in the right context. Yes, you
Yeah.
stimulate them to
But it was probably a vision framework.
yes,
Even that one.
Yes,
Because only after that,
yes,
the Vision Council
yes,
and everything else started.
Yes,
So it was so many stages.
yes, exactly.
So President did not say that's the
That's
vision
exactly,
or my
yes,
vision.
yeah. It came out of this process of
Yes.
really trying to understand who
Yeah.
are we and where do we want to go to. And
It was like a think tanking at the highest level.
Exactly. And that is why sometimes even when this next vision was developed in Botswana, some of us kept on saying, you don't, once you have your vision is there, and you can only come back after a few years to do an appraisal to see whether you have, where you
Where you
said
are.
you would do this, but you didn't do that, and for what reason, and so forth. So it helped. But you can't every 5 years create a new vision, because it is
an ongoing vision.
it is an ongoing vision, and the vision of Botswana, and that is why it worked so well, because it was not like imposed on the nation. These were not ideas
so Keumile didn't impose.
It
just
came out of the people.
elicited.
And it was very well received, and people says, my God, this is what we want to
Yeah.
do, but we have not been able to put it down like this. And this is really what
And actually,
reflects us.
and the smart partnership
Yeah, and the smart partnership.
and
yes,
the dialogue in
exactly,
Kasana
yes.
just demonstrated,
Yeah.
not only to Botswana,
Yeah.
Botswana, but to everybody else who came there.
Yes.
So, I mean, one owes Keumile and Botswana for everybody else being inspired
Yeah.
later, not only for smart partnership dialogues, but
Mm.
for the visions themselves.
Visions themselves.
In Azulbini, in Lesotho, in Mozambique,
Yes,
in Seychelles,
Yes,
Malawi, Uganda, and so on.
yeah.
In St. Lucia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because at that time there was really a movement around the world, in certain circles, of national visions being drawn by experts who come to a
That's it.
country
Yeah.
and sit there for 3 months or so and produce
Still
a
is.
document, and this
Document.
is your vision. This was different. This is really was something that came out of
from the grassroots.
the grassroots.
And involving everybody.
Once you
Yeah.
stimulate them, you ask people the right questions, and then you get
And
the
that
vision.
courage to be part of it.
Exactly.
So, well, so I suppose it was Keumile is usually very, very humble,
Yes.
and I wish there would be. There was this little book about the making of a president.
Yes.
Most of the books about presidents are sick books,
Yeah.
and people write a little book. There is another one of
Mm.
similar nature,
Mm.
making of a president.
Mm.
But I suppose it's making of smart partnership movement
Yeah.
is a manifesto,
Mm.
and making of taking forward
Mm.
now the national visioning with the new in the digital landscape.
Exactly.
That will continue to inspire, to be inspired by Keumile. So I suppose with this maybe we should, for the time being,
Yeah.